Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Holly Farbo. I am the Academic and Industry Relations Manager for Hygiene. A little background on myself. I am a dental hygienist. I've been a hygienist for 21 years. I was in private practice for 19 of those years. I went to Aspen Dental in Pennsylvania. I went to an Aspen Dental and I absolutely fell in love with everything that Aspen had to offer. It was the way that I felt like patients should be seen. So when it came time to, this job came available for the academic manager, and it was talking to students and getting information out there about Aspen, I was definitely on board for that. So we'll go ahead and start with our panelists. I'm just going to kind of go the way you guys are in my view, and we'll start with Toby. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us how you got to Aspen.
Yeah, so I'm Toby. I'm a hygienist. I've been a hygienist for a little over 8 years. I started out in private practice and actually in pedo, and then I came to Aspen. I've been with Aspen for almost 5 years now. Absolutely love the company, just like you were saying, Holly. Outside of work, I'm a mom and a wife. That's really about all I've got.
Great, thank you. Okay, Kendra, you're up.
Hello, my name is Kendra Archer, and I have been a hygienist for 14 years this year. Did 10 years in private practice, joined Aspen as a clinical hygienist, went on to support a territory of about 18 offices, and then have moved on since then to become a director of hygiene support, supporting around 102 offices. So lots of different levels within the organization, lots of growth opportunities. I'm definitely one that advocates for that and have been nothing but amazed by my experience here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kendra. I'm just going to really quick go over a little bit about what a DSO is and explain that for people that don't know those letters, DSO. So that means dental support or dental service organization. And what that is say, for example, I work for Aspen Dental Management, which is the management side. The Aspen Dentals are independently owned by a doctor. So the office where the doctor and the hygienist, full autonomy to do clinical treatment, treat patients. ADMI, we're the management side. So we take care of everything non-clinical. So if you had a dentist that got out of dental school and wanted to open a practice, they would have to have things into place to do that. A real estate agent to try to find a place or try to find a practice to buy into. They would have to, hire a staff and do payroll and get a computer system and, try to market their business and, maybe bring on a partner if the business wasn't doing well. So all of those things that you don't really think about, we do. So we take care of payroll and benefits and all of those things that are non-clinical. So that's a little background on the DSO, what a DSO is. So let's go ahead and start with number one, Kendra. Do we hire students? That's always a question that I get from students. Do we hire new grads?
Yeah, 100% we do. So I always say that I love working with new grads because so much of what we do mimics what they're already used to, those systems in school, full 6-point perio charting, evaluating comprehensively, all of those things, having full mouth radiographs at every new patient visit. There are a lot of things that, like I said, mimic the way things are done in school. So that transition from school to our organization is usually very smooth. Of course, there's time management pieces to that, but every new hygienist coming out of school has time management things to work through, and we're understanding of that. We get that. So 100% on board to and open to hiring new grads.
Great. Toby, this question will be for you. Take us through a day. Are you required to see a certain amount of patients? Do you have a certain amount of time that you have for each patient, or how does that go with your patient visits?
So you don't have a certain amount of patients that you have to see a day. just as much time as you need for your procedures, basically. You have goals per day, of course. If you can meet those goals with however many patients it takes, to meet your goals, but no, not a set number of patients that you have to see a day.
Okay. Kendra, the training that we give to our hygienists when they come into the office, whether or not they be a new graduate or an existing hygienist just coming to Aspen, can you go over a little bit about the training that we do?
Sure. Of course, our training environment has changed since COVID. As the whole rest of the world has changed, that has also changed. So we have this great new system that is a hybrid environment of both in-office training with a trainer hygienist, and also a virtual piece of that with different modules laid out that helps hygienists get acclimated to, the different systems within Aspen Dental. We have a lot of our own systems, our own operating system, so that our offices can all be connected. We do operate with the Kodak system, but it is integrated into our other operating system. Our hygienists have the autonomy to do their own ordering. So just even systems like that, we make sure that they're fully immersed both virtually and live, so that they come out of their training feeling ready to go in one of our offices.
I muted myself. Toby, we do our new patients a little bit differently at Aspen. Can you explain how a new patient exam and how that process goes from our new patient standpoint?
Yeah, every new patient will get a full mouth series x-ray and a Panorex. Of course, review medical history with the patient. Every patient gets a perio chart too, which is awesome. Following the perio chart, our dentist will come in, do their exam, and then they see our treatment coordinator. And they discuss all the prices, things like that we don't have to discuss, which is pretty awesome.
That is awesome. That was one of my favorite parts about the new patient treatment. So are you in Toby, are you in a one hygienist office or a two hygienist office?
There's two of us now. Our second hygienist just joined us probably about less than a month ago, and it has been awesome.
So can you explain a little bit about how that dynamic goes with two hygienists in the office and what your role is if you have a lead, an associate, and how that plays out?
Yeah, so in our office, I'm the lead hygienist. So I like to see myself as our associate hygienist assistant, basically. My responsibilities are seeing new patients and working the schedule, making sure we have enough time for procedures, things like that. But I'm there for her like a mentor. I'm there to help her perio chart, help her set her room up, any questions, anything I can do to help her. We're a team, we work together. But, I have my own column as well. And it stays pretty light for the most part. That way we can do same day starts. So having the second hygienist has definitely been a huge blessing in our office.
Kendra, we'll get this question because everybody likes to know. There's a lot of misconceptions about DSOs, and especially with Aspen. Do your hygienists work on commission? And do they have to are they sent home if they don't have a patient? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a question as I go into schools that I get a lot. And so our hygienists are paid kind of on a multi-model system. So first and foremost, they have their base hourly rate that they're paid. That's a very competitive rate that we try very hard to keep competitive within each individual market as we have, offices across the nation. So there's the base hourly rate that is a guaranteed base hourly rate. What you're hired in at is what the amount of hours that you will always be guaranteed. We don't ask our hygienists to clock out early or leave late, clock out early at the end of the day, if we don't have patients, because there's always things that we can be doing. As Toby mentioned, it's a team. There's always things as the hygienist in the office that you can be working on to grow your hygiene business or just to be helping out your fellow coworkers. In addition to that, our hygienists are eligible, whether you're part-time or full-time, for an incentive based on gross profit, just like our doctors are. This is a business, and we want to make sure that people are rewarded for their hard work and the effort that they put into it. And so every month you have the ability to incentivize based on things you do. So back to your original question, are they paid on commission? No. And do you have to leave the office? No. But there are lots of things that can be very, very financially healthy for you as a hygienist at Aspen.
Good. Perfect. Another question we get all the time, and a misconception, and I'll let Toby answer this, is the sales part of it. People think we have to sell products. Can you explain a little bit about what products we use and, why we use them? Or do you feel like you're have to sell products to people?
My opinion on that is if you feel like you're selling, you're not doing what's right for the patient. I would never sell something to a patient or recommend something that a patient couldn't benefit from. So that's how I like to look at it. Every patient can benefit from a power brush, from an oral cancer screening. So we do offer, take-home products, sodium gel, Stannis rinse, dry mouth gel in my paste. And then there's Zoom whitening. There's a multiple amount of things, that can benefit the patient, but I don't consider it selling. I don't even like saying that.
So one of the things I think is really important at Aspen and what sets us apart is our support system. So Kendra, you're part of that support. Can you explain a little bit about how the territory hygiene manager or division director and what you do to support your offices?
Absolutely. So I know you made reference at the beginning about the non-clinical stuff that a DSO does, but they also do offer the clinical support, which would be my role in all of this. As a territory manager of hygiene support, they usually average between 18 to 30 offices, just depending on the geographic location. And they're going to be in with the hygienist side by side, helping them dig through their business regularly, offering feedback. So much of what our hygienists do is communication, getting to understand your patient and breaking down those barriers to care. And that's just not always things that we're taught in hygiene school. And so we're there to help that through. They visit each of their offices. They know their hygienists. They're involved with them from the hiring process up. So that is their first line of clinical support. In addition to that is me, the division director of hygiene support. I support a larger amount of offices, but I'm still very involved in the clinical aspect of care and what we can do to help grow your hygiene business and be there to support you and grow you as a provider and a leader in the practice. Lastly, you also have a complete set, as you mentioned earlier, of operational support. So if you have an issue with your time card, or you need help figuring something out on the computer system, or those type of things, you have a whole other line of support that can be there to answer your questions, from your office manager to your regional manager to your operations director and on up. So the support levels kind of just weave their way out on both the operations and clinical side, but there is a plethora of opportunity with that.
And that's another thing that I loved. I think some misconceptions are that, we have these people in place to basically tell you what to do, to yell at you if you're not doing something wrong. When it was the complete opposite, I found so much support and so many people that were willing to help. And, we are really a family here. So I love that part of it. So Toby, what type of new, technologies do we use in the office, especially to diagnose perio or for your new patient exam?
Yeah, my favorite tool right now is our iTero scanner. It's amazing for the patients to get to see what we see. You know, it's no longer you hold this mirror, I'll hold this mirror and look at what I'm looking at. They get the full view, and that's amazing alone, the iTero scanner. And then of course we've talked about, you know, oral cancer screening, you know, the extra technology we have with that. But by far my favorite tool is the iTero scanner.
Yeah, we just started using that when I got in there, and I love that.
It's amazing.
Yes. So can you explain, Toby, a little bit about, and sometimes this puts into perspective some of the things we do and the way we do it. What type of patient does Aspen generally see? What type of patient are you seeing on a regular basis?
Usually the patients who haven't been to the dentist in a really long time, or who are scared to go to the dentist. That's the majority of the patients that we see. You know, that they've either not had insurance, they've just been scared to come in, they're embarrassed. But we do see a wide variety of patients, but it's an awesome opportunity to help to give these patients, you know, their smile back and to be there for them. And I think that a lot of times too, the patients that we see don't have insurance, and it's amazing that we do offer payment plans and other options like that to help them, to get them back to healthy.
So I think you mentioned this briefly about your office staff. How do you go about explaining the patient, or do you explain the patient price when they want to know how much is this going to cost me? How do you approach that subject?
We don't discuss prices. Our office manager, treatment coordinator is the one that does that. Usually the only time I will discuss a price with the patient is if they want to do our oral cancer screening. And that's something that we can do on our new patient exam in between perio charting and when our doctor comes in. So I'm comfortable with saying, like in our office, it's $30. Other than that, I don't discuss prices with patients. I don't feel comfortable with that. And that's what our treatment coordinator is there for.
Perfect. Let's go back. And this was a question that was asked by a school, the faculty there. What type, and Kendra, either one of you can answer this, but Kendra, maybe this is for you. What type of person are you looking for a position at Aspen? If a student was interested in possibly joining Aspen, what type of personality traits, what kind of things do you look for when you're hiring someone for Aspen?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, so much of what we have to do is around communication. So someone who can, be warm and be empathetic. As Toby mentioned, a lot of our patients are really nervous and scared to be here. So helping them understand, being able to articulate how you feel about the disease process, what you're seeing today, and what treatment they need. Someone who's honest and can have those conversations with patients openly. Someone who's coachable. You know, we are a very forward-thinking organization, and along with that, like, we're moving right along with some of the biggest advances in dentistry, and so that things will always be new and coming at you with new equipment and new technology. So, you know, being open to learning new things and taking a different look at the way things have been done in dentistry in general is a huge qualities for me.
Perfect. And on that track, if a new grad or anyone for that matter wanted to seek a job at Aspen, how would they go about doing that? What would be the steps?
So aspendentaljobs.com always has a complete listing of all of the positions that we have available nationwide. And then additionally, you can always get in contact with one of us after one of these sessions. We can get that contact information to you. We have multiple layers of people who are willing to discuss the opportunities that we have here at Aspen. So getting in touch, reaching out to your local office still should have an option to get a hold of one of us, of someone that could help you out. But the website is definitely the most current, up-to-date way to reach out if you're interested.
And for any students that I come in contact with or do my AMAs, I'm always available to direct you into the right hands with who you need to speak to. One more question, Kendra, on that. I had a question about this yesterday from a student asking that if they were living in one state and wanted to transfer to another state, are they able to do that within the Aspen network?
Absolutely. And that's before or after you join us. So we have opportunities before if you're looking to relocate as a new hygienist. Many of our offices are willing, if you are willing, to make that leap of faith and move, they can help with that. I actually joined Aspen in a different state than I lived in. They helped me get my license, and it's been, a journey ever since. And then additionally, the same thing goes if you're already within our offices. I have hygienists, when I was working with Kentucky, I have one in Virginia now. I have one that has went to Alabama. So I have one that's moving from the Kentucky territory to the Indiana territory. So once, every office is different and has its own feel. They're owned by different doctors who make those decisions in those offices, but the model is always the same. And so, as long as everything is going, in the right direction, the availability to move within the Aspen Nation is something that is very frequently done with our hygienist.
Toby, because we do our new patient, when I explain sometimes to people looking to come into Aspen about the way we do our new patients, one of the questions I always get is, how do you manage your schedule and still be able to see those new patients? How can you explain that a little bit, that process?
Yeah. Usually before we hired our second hygienist, it was just me for some time. A lot of times it would work out to where the new patient would be ready either right before I started my procedure or right after. Sometimes though, if you're in the middle, say, of an SRP, you find a good stopping point and you go to see the new patient. But what you have to think about is you usually always have support. Your assistants are there to perio chart with you. It usually takes about 10-15 minutes or so, but it's a good break for your patient too. If you're in the middle of a long procedure, just tell the patient, I'm going to give you a minute to rest your mouth and I'll be right back. And then you see the new patient come back. But usually, it's scheduled well, so you're not, crazy with sit down in your patient, go see a new patient. It's usually, scheduled well, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And, I have told people too, sometimes it's just like a nice flow. It's like any office, you kind of have to get that flow going, no matter where you're at, you just eventually get that. And sometimes that just takes a little while, but honestly, once you get into it, it's really not bad.
Right.
So,
and that's the benefit. I'm sorry. That's the benefit to double hygiene
go.
too,
Right.
with my schedule being more light and being able to see the new patients. And then our second hygienist is able to stay and see her production patients.
So do you refer patients out for any procedures at all? Perio, do you have any other things that you refer for?
We do, if we have a situation, a perio patient that is beyond what I feel comfortable treating, we will refer to a periodontist. In our office, we don't have an endodontist. So we would refer out for that as well. Oral surgeon. Some offices do have the specialist, but the office I'm in does not.
So how do you, hang on one second. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna add to that real quick,
go, please.
Holly.
Yeah.
Many of our doctors and offices also offer implants in office, along with clear aligner therapy. So we do a lot of general dentistry, but we've definitely jumped on the bandwagon and have those different lines of dentistry that are available in many of our offices now as well.
Okay, good. And how about CE? Did we talk about CE? Do we offer CE for our hygienists?
all the CE all the time. We have a lot of vendor partners. We have a lot of good partnerships with different online forums, a plethora of opportunity in different platforms, all available free to you as an Aspen employee upon hire. So there's always different things out there that are becoming available. So there is a lot of CE.
Perfect. We'll approach this subject now since this is what's been going on. COVID. Number one, Toby, do you feel safe in your office?
Absolutely. Every patient that comes into our office is screened, temperature check. We don't have a lot of people waiting in the waiting room any longer. Patients wait in their vehicle. I have all of the protective gear that I need to feel comfortable and to feel like my patients are comfortable as well. So absolutely. Good.
So are you spacing patients out? Are you seeing less patients? Are you using, or you just, how has your appointment changed with that?
My hygiene schedule has stayed about the same, which I've always given myself enough time, in between patients. We are very careful about how many people are in the office at once, trying to avoid passing each other through the hallway, things like that. Just really using common sense with that.
Perfect. What type of other procedures do you do other than your scalings, SRPs and cleanings? What other procedures do you do in the office?
As Kendra was saying, we've just started with our clear aligner therapy, which is really awesome. We offer a advanced oral cancer screening. We're using oral ID right now, which is amazing. Zoom whitening, which is one of my favorite procedures to do for our patients. Am I missing anything, Kendra?
We do offer our patients, like she had mentioned earlier, a variety of at-home care products, from the Oral-B Genius to multiple paste and rinses based on their needs. I'm trying to think. Other than that, I think you covered it. You did good.
You did. Toby, how does the handoff between the doctor and the hygienist, how does that go? When you see your new patients and you treatment plan them, how do you discuss that, or how does that conversation go with your doctor?
So I feel like handoffs are it's very important between the doctor and the hygienist. We have a computer that's in our sterilization room, in our hallway, basically. And I'll pull up the x-rays, pull up my perio chart, and talk with our dentist and explain, what my findings were with the perio chart, what I found, on the x-rays, and discuss the treatment plan, what I would recommend. And then, our doctor discusses that with the patient as well, which I feel like is it's an important part for sure, whenever it comes to hygiene treatment planning. So we always discuss, before he goes in.
So one thing that students are always very passionate about, and they ask me all the time, it's important for them, is community outreach programs. Can you talk a little bit about what Aspen does to give back to the communities that they serve? Kendra, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Okay.
We've got a couple different opportunities for hygienists who want to give back. Our organization is very dedicated, especially to veterans. So once a year, within multiple of our offices across the nation, we do what's called a day of service, where we invite veterans in to do all the treatment we can within that time for them at no charge. We make it a really big deal in our offices, and it's near and dear to many, many of our hearts. Along with that, we also have what's called the Mouthmobile that travels from different locations and also serves veterans. So we work with different organizations who partner with different veterans in need, and we get them appointed to come to our mobile unit that has 2 different operatories in it, and we serve veterans in those communities all day long. Beyond that, we also do trips to other countries who are in need, set up shop and work with organizations in other countries. And those are usually multiple day long trips, but I've had doctors and assistants from our territory who have done these trips, and they are life-changing. So multiple opportunities as a hygienist to help both here in the United States and beyond.
Wonderful. Can you talk a little bit about work-life balance is important to us? And this is, again, going to be individual because our offices are owned by the doctor, but how does the general, Toby, you can ask, how your office hours, are you open? What are your office hours like?
We are open 8 to 6, Monday through Wednesday. Thursday is 9 to 7. Friday is 8 to 1. So when you're discussing work-home life balance, I love the half day on Friday. I'm not sure if every office does this, but in our office, being a mom, being a wife, being a working mom, it's awesome to get my kids early on Friday and always do something special with them on that day. So it's definitely something to look forward to every week. I really do appreciate the half day.
Do we have part-time hygienists, or we only employ full-time, Kendra?
Absolutely. We have opportunity for both. And I'll elaborate even more on Toby's. We've especially noticed during this time with the COVID situation that, you know, some moms are having to stay home and teach their kids. So they need some evening hours when their spouse comes home and can take over, or they're more willing to want to work Saturdays now because they're having to stay home during the week. So we have, you know, hired 1 day a week hygienist to 5 day a week hygienist. The opportunity is endless, and we are willing to work with people with different schedules. Our biggest thing here in this organization is we break down barriers to care. And so we don't want the staffing model to be a barrier to care for for our patients. So we definitely work with that with all of our staff and making that work for our patients.
Here's another question that comes in all the time is, are we doing any kind of laser treatment for perio? Are we using lasers in the offices?
I'll take this one, Toby. So actually we are looking at piloting those in some of our offices out west. That is a very individualized, state regulated thing. So we may begin to see it in some states and not in others. But our organization does a great job of always looking into new technology and new things that we're working on. Same thing, like we're doing something with voice activated perio charting for all of our offices. So lots of different things to come. But we always do have people on the back end working to see what will work for us in our practices.
Perfect. One of the things that I think sets us apart, and when I get this question, I always say this, and then, you know, so maybe we can explain what this means. But when they say what makes Aspen different, I always say our culture. Can you explain a little bit about what that means to you and what our culture actually is? And I can let you both speak on this.
I think every office is different. And just like you were saying, when you first started the conversation, the offices are owned by a dentist. So it's a, corporation inside. It's like a family inside, if that makes sense. Like, and so we're a family. We help each other out. Kendra was in our office today. And we were short an assistant, so I jumped in and helped, and they do the same for me. Our office manager was in the back running around helping, and that's what it's all about. That gives the patients the best care whenever everybody's there to help out. It's, you're with your work family the majority of the time of the day anyway. But I feel like teamwork is definitely a huge part in that.
For me, one of the biggest things that I feel like separates Aspen apart is the way they invest in their people. You know, even just taking an opportunity like this to be able to have the technology, number one, the organization, and the willingness that the three of us have, and the other people have joined us tonight, to go on and just talk about our experience, because they have literally invested in me, you know, from the time they helped me get my other state license to now as a leader and all the things in between. They just never stop investing in their people. And that is my favorite part of what we do.
Yeah, that is a great great part of Aspen. So negative press, you know, we get that, and I've dealt with that with some students, you know, asking questions about certain things. How do you deal with that? How do you approach that subject if someone asks you, oh, I saw this, or I saw this? What do you do in that aspect? And again, you both can speak on this.
You have to think Aspen has over 700 offices. Any business, you're going to have at least one unhappy customer. I mean, you try to avoid that, but that's reality. So if you have one unhappy customer, one bad review with 700 offices, you see what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that every office is that way. You know, you can't just judge one office by the other reviews. I've definitely had to deal with that. And I know better though, you know, being in the environment. And that's what I always say. I'm like, you know, you're looking at the one bad review per all. I mean, you can't do that. Like, you can't just judge by what you're seeing online.
Right. Kendra?
For me, I just own it. You know, we're humans and we're not perfect, and DSO or not, we're still a collective group of humans. And so sometimes we goof up, sometimes we make decisions that we think are going to be great, and then they just don't go the way we want them to. Or sometimes we leave a conversation and it didn't end exactly the way we had hoped it did. But we're always working to be better. We do own up to the mistakes we've made, and we're all just growing and continuing to be the best we can, especially in this environment that has changed us all. I feel like it's rocked us all to our core and helped us figure out what's important. And so, you know, we just got to own that. Yes, mistakes have been made, but we're always working to be better.
Right. And, you know, I also, sometimes I have to give students a little life lesson. It's the mom in me that I say, you know, you have to be a team player. And it doesn't matter if you're with Aspen, if you're not with Aspen. If you're not a team player, you're going to have a long, hard career. So sometimes it starts with you, and you have to be able to be willing to go into an office and help. And especially with us, we're very team oriented at Aspen. And so if you can't be a member of a team, sometimes maybe you're not the right fit. And, you know, we say that, you know, maybe this isn't for everybody, but, you know, we're looking for the best of the best too. We are only as good as our people, you know, reviews and things like that. We want our offices to thrive. And like Kendra said, you know, we make mistakes, we learn from those mistakes. And I can tell you firsthand that we listen to our people, we hear what's being said. So I had a question, and this was a doctor that I had met, and he worked for another DSO, and his question was, you know, there's kind of a hygiene shortage right now going on. You know, hygienists are starting to become a little sparse, and things are happening, whether or not it's COVID or what. What are we doing differently at Aspen to secure a hygienist? You know, as for a doctor, on a doctor's point, he's concerned about going into an office and not having staff. What do we do to get our hygienists in the office?
So one of the things is kind of back to what I had said earlier around getting creative and open-minded about different schedules than what we've dealt with in the past. You know, we do realize that a lot of people are now, instead of being just a dental hygienist, they're a mom, a wife, and a teacher. And I've been there. It was a huge change, and figuring all that out, just staying open-minded, being flexible, And I will say that we have, you know, really amped up our team to help find the best of the best. You know, we do have people that are trying to search through those resumes. We have you, Holly, who is trying to get the message out there that now is a great time to really either, you know, enhance your career, or if you're just starting your career, we want you to. Because we have a place for everybody, and if you're willing to grow and to be coached and to be a part of our Aspen family, like Toby said, there is a lot of opportunity here.
Right. Yes, that you're absolutely right, Kendra. Let me real quick go back to in-office stuff. So we talked about our training, HOP. Can you explain, Toby, a little bit about what HOP is and what that does for our hygienists that come on?
So I think HOP has changed a little bit with COVID, but I know whenever I started, we had all sorts of training, you know, on all the products that were offered in the office, as far as, you know, even MI paste, oral cancer screenings, Zoom whitening. So we were given, you know, all of the information that we needed before, of course, recommending the products, and then even discussing metrics and reports that you can run, you know, how to build a productive schedule, things like that. And I'm not sure if that has changed a lot, Kendra, since I went through HOP.
Yeah, that we've definitely, it's been one of those things that we've learned that combining it earlier on and making it a part of the initial training is more beneficial for our hygienists, especially in this environment right now. We used to send all of our hygienists to our practice support center in Chicago, but we had to think outside of the box with how we were going to approach that since the COVID situation has hit. And that's where they've really worked hard to create the hybrid learning environment where we have both virtual and in office.
Toby, the bridge. Okay, so a lot of hygienists will ask me, what software do you use? Do you use EqualSoft? Do you use Dentrix? We use our own, but can you explain a little bit about what the bridge is and what that does for you on a daily basis, like as a hygienist in office?
So the bridge is an area where you can find basically anything that you need to know, any forms, any consents. Like I was saying, there's reports that you can run, you know, to help you get patients back on your schedule who fell off of the schedule. Basically, it's an area full of information for anything that you need. I don't know if that's helpful.
No, yeah, it is. And what I'm leading to is there's, you know, we have a metric system and that's part of the bridge. And some people get a little bit scared about that. But Kendra, can you explain a little bit about what the metrics are and how that aids us in our everyday job?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of different available tools to help track and figure out where you have opportunity within your business at each level. So it's not just a hygiene specific things. The doctors have these availabilities, the DAs have these availabilities. And so they're really, I view them as different tools to make sure that we're on track and keeping our hygiene business healthy. We never want our hygienist to be stacking him or herself up with prophies all day long, especially now. It's exhausting to set up and reset up and set up and reset up and go through all those steps in between. So we have a lot of tools that can help us track that. You know, are we seeing a healthy amount of periodontal patients within our practice? Are we making sure that we're discussing whitening with our patients? Because we want to offer the best of the best. We want to be the best of the best for our patients. And so we have those tools available to make sure that when we're coaching and developing hygienists and other team members, that we can, you know, help track that progress and celebrate the wins and identify when we've got areas that just need some more work.
And sometimes you just have to, you know, you have to talk to your patients about these things because someone who might want whitening may be embarrassed or afraid to talk about that. But if you bring up the subject and just say, hey, this is something we offer how many times I've gotten people who are like, oh, I was thinking about that, but I didn't want to say it. Or, it's just about communication and the way we talk to our patients. So Toby, how do you deal with a resistant patient, a patient who, says, I've been going to the dentist for 20 years and I've only ever had a cleaning and I've never been told this and I've never been told that. So how do you approach a patient that's really resistant? How do you do that?
So one awesome thing, like I was saying, is our iTero scanner. So it's right in front of them. I mean, you can see it. If you can see the build up there, like this is exactly what we're seeing. We can also pull up our x-rays on our TV and show them. I mean, the visual there's no denying it. It is what it is. Pull up the perio chart. When we're perio charting, we say the numbers out loud. Hey, we like to see 1 through 3. When we're getting 6, 7, 8, it is what it is. And a lot of times, yeah, patients do get a little upset, but but they're very thankful that we're honest with them. We're not just bringing them in, doing a pro fee. We're treating them for what they have. And that's one awesome part of it for sure.
Sometimes I get so amazed when I see complaints that they called out all these numbers. Like they're so appalled by us calling out numbers. And I'm thinking to myself, have you never had that done? Unfortunately, so, there's a lot of undertreatment going on out there. And so by the time they get to us, as far as I'm concerned, I think what we do is what should always be done. It's what you learn in school. It's what you should have done your whole career. And that gets kind of pushed by the wayside. So sometimes by the time our patient comes to us, that's something foreign to them and they are afraid to be at the dentist anyway. And then when you start doing stuff like calling out numbers, like, wait, what's going on? And they complain about that, and so that's what I usually tell some of my students, that if you look at some of the complaints and understand, where they're coming from and the type of patient that we see on a regular basis, sometimes you can understand, a little more than, oh, there's 60 complaints. Yeah, but let's look at that a little bit closer,
Holly, I would like
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Toby. I
No,
would
you're
like
fine.
to add that we are 100% coaching our hygienist to the updated AAP guidelines. And so this is not an Aspen standard of care. This is our, dental hygiene governing body. We are following the AAP guidelines with the new staging and grading. So it's very important. We have some systems in place and our expectations around things, but it's based on what our professional, organizations are telling us we should be doing as dental hygienists, not just as Aspen dental hygienists.
Right.
And if you're getting complaints from doing what is right for the patient, then what do you have to do? What do you have to be upset about? This is what is best for the patient in the long run.
Right. So one last question, because this one can be a long one, so I'm going to give us a little bit of time for this, where to be respectful of your time. We consider ourselves a yes organization, and what that means is basically we say yes to treatment. We say yes to coming in and getting work done. We say yes. So can you give maybe a story or a situation where, yes, that's come into play for you? Do you have any of those stories that you can share?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, mine is more about my own experience than versus my patient experience. I could talk about the million times that we've, helped get somebody whitening right before their big wedding day, or we've got tons of wedding stories for sure, where you helped a patient get a partial, for their daughter's wedding, or but for me, my experience is a little bit different. And as I mentioned earlier, Aspen helped me get my Kentucky license. And I remember the first time that I received a call. I had been in a car accident and was sitting in the emergency room. And the person called me and said, "Hey, I saw that you had uploaded your resume. Can you talk? And I was like, now's not the best time. Sitting in the ER. I had been driving. My office that I had been with in private practice had completely downsized, and I had been driving to a temp job when it happened. And so a few months later, we ended up having that conversation. I said, I don't have a Kentucky license. And it was, we ended the conversation. She called me back about a month and a half later and said, hey, I said, remember we had this conversation. I don't have a Kentucky license. And she said, but what if you did? And so even though we didn't have our yes story right away, had she not been creative and thought outside of the box and said, yes, we will figure it out for you, Kendra, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I have met so many hygienists and have been able to do so much more and touch more lives than if I was just that singular hygienist seeing patients. It takes all of us. We need all of the different positions. And so Aspen said yes to me and has never looked back. So I certainly am certainly glad I said yes to them.
That's a good story. Toby?
So I agree with Kendra. We could go on. I feel like we could go on for a really long time about yes stories with patients. But I would also, my personal experience, when I started with Aspen, I was so shy. I had really bad social anxiety. I really wanted to work with Aspen, so I gave it everything I had in the interview. But honestly, I could barely even eat lunch with my coworkers before I started because I had a hard time even talking in front of people. But Aspen has helped me grow so much. I mean, even doing an Ask Me Anything call right now, I seriously would have hid from this years ago. But Aspen has, they've encouraged me. They've been there for me. Kendra has had my back since she's been in her position. Having my name on the wall with the dentist names. I'm considered a provider at Aspen. The support team that I've had to help me grow the classes, the CEs. I'm super thankful that Aspen even said yes to me, like Kendra was saying, because I don't think I would be where I am right now if it weren't for Aspen, just personally.
And my story goes very similar to that. I was private practice 19 years, very burnout, and thought I would just retire, doing what I kind of liked at one point in my life. Went to an Aspen office, fell in love with hygiene again, even clinical hygiene. And now I'm in this position, and it's a dream job that I never ever thought that I would have in an environment I never thought I'd be in, and opening doors for me every single day. And Aspen has invested in me and given me this dream job that I couldn't even have thought up. And so I'm so thankful for them and what they have done for my career, and for dentistry in general. So closing on one more question that I got from a school that asked, what would be your advice for a new hygienist that might want to work at Aspen coming out of school? Kendra, do you want to go?
Mine would be open-minded. Come in, talk to us, ask questions, make your own judgment and form your own opinion about how you want to practice and be a provider, and then find what fits for you. It may not be us, but be open-minded enough to ask the questions and get a feel for what is out there and available to you as a hygienist. There is a lot of opportunity. And of course we want, new people on our team, but we want hygienists in general. I think Toby and I, and you, Holly, you're a hygienist too. We just want to see the profession continue to grow. And I feel like we're in the perfect spot to help that. So just remain open and form your own opinions.
Perfect. Toby?
I agree with Kendra. Do your research. Don't settle. You've worked really hard to get where you are right now. work for a company that's going to respect you. And Aspen has done just that for me and you guys. But don't settle. You've worked really hard to get where you are right now.
And for me, I always tell students, my biggest regret is listening to other people. And I wish I would have been at Aspen sooner. So please, make your own opinions, like Kendra said. Do your research, talk to us. We're very transparent here. Questions. This is why we do these Ask Me Anything. It's literally Ask Me Anything. We have nothing to hide. I know most of you personally, and we've spent time together, and it really is an amazing group of people, culture, and support here. So thank you both very much for joining me today. It's so nice to see you virtually. I can't wait to see you in person at some point, but I really appreciate you being here. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a good night. Bye-bye.